Early bird gets the worm, right? Hey everyone, Vicky Kelty here. And yes, I will be talking about idioms in a moment because this month I was just really trying to check in with what I think I know by finding strategic opportunities to use those things regularly. My study stats for Spanish were I spent 40 minutes, and that was with idioms. And then I spent 30 minutes when I was out and about. So this is an approximate listening to a podcast, a couple of podcasts actually. And that was related to the past forms review. And then for my leisure time, I was basically just watching the usual TV shows that I watch with my husband and the usual interactions that I have in Spanish. And one of the shows, though, that I wanted to mention that we watch, because we watched a lot of it this month, was the show First Dates. And it's funny that it's called that in Spanish. I think it's a show that exists in other countries as well, but it is a really, really good show for listening practice because the people that come on the show to go on these dates, they can come from all over. They can come from all over Spain. They can come from different countries, maybe a Spanish speaking country, maybe a non-Spanish speaking country, but they do the episode in Spanish. So they're always speaking Spanish. And yeah, you just get to hear a lot of different accents. So I find it is, from an educational standpoint, it's a really good listening practice opportunity. So, about the topic at hand, the about catching that worm early in the morning. Well, the idioms, the reason that I focused on idioms for part of my practice this month is because I know a lot of idioms, but I don't use any of them. And so when I decided to practice idioms in French, I said, well, gosh, this would be a brilliant thing for me to do in Spanish, even though I did it in quite a different way. But I decided that I was going to follow the example of my high school Spanish teacher that I had for fifth year Spanish and put an idiom of the week on our little dry erase board that we have on our door. So I've been choosing an idiom that I want to learn. Um, I've been putting an idiom that I want to learn on the door every single week. And it's been really fun. My husband's gotten really into it. And sometimes he'll use them with me. Sometimes he'll give me a French translation for one. And so far, I have found an opportunity to use each one somehow, either with my husband or to explain a situation that's going on, sometimes with other people, which is like the main goal is that I want to use these out in the real world, not just with my husband. He's the real world, but I mean the outside of our apartment real world. And I've been starting to do that thanks to having these on the door because I have the correct formation of them, and I think that that's what I was always worried about is that I was gonna say it wrong, and I'm like, "Oh, people aren't gonna understand it because they say it wrong." But now that I'm practicing them, like, with the formation of the expression on the door for me to see every single day and think about and know what it means and know the way to use it, I am definitely feeling more confident about going out there and using them in conversations. So I hope that I will continue to do that for as long as feels fun for me. And if you are looking to learn more idioms or expressions in English, maybe that could be a way for you to get them in your regular life. Now, the next thing that I was focusing on was the past forms in Spanish. And again, this is the same thing that I did with French. What I was learning really mirrored each other in both languages this month. I also looked at the past tenses for French, but again, in a quite different way because of the level difference that I have between French and Spanish. So with Spanish, I have a lot of experience with past tenses. I have learned them and relearned them over and over. And sometimes my teachers have actually been like, Vicky, you're obsessive about the past tenses. You need to just let it go and just use them. And that's completely true. I do need to let it go and just use them. But I also think the reason for me wanting to spend more time learning and comparing these specific past forms and their uses comes from a very logical place. And I fully approve of the continued learning and reviewing of past forms, but with a side of caution. I really don't want myself or for you to get stuck in grammar learning and not be using the grammar. So, what I really challenge myself to do is in my home, in the privacy of my own space, I am spending time with these grammar forms. When I go out and I'm spending time with my in laws, I will use the grammar forms that come up in the conversation as and when they're needed. And I'm not going to let this doubt that's come up about, oh, do I use this path form or do I use the other? I'm not going to let that stop me from trying them out in sentences. I'm still going to keep using them even as I'm reviewing the information that I'm learning. And I would just like explain that what happened for me is that I was practicing them and reviewing them, and it hit me that I use them really instinctively. Just, I'm like, oh, I know to use this, I know to use the other. And in the past, teachers have said, well, yeah, you know them instinctively because you're around them all the time in Spain. So you're just picking up on what other people are saying. And to an extent, that might be true, that there are certain phrases that I just copy what other people have said. But there are also things that I use instinctively that I learned back when I was studying, not necessarily because a teacher taught me that, but because that's how I learned it. And those things I didn't always learn accurately. So I may be using it instinctively, but it doesn't always mean that I'm using it correctly and that it is the clearest way to explain something. So I hope this explanation is clear for you because what I'm trying to say is that I was shown through this practice that being really natural about how you're saying something is, while important, more important that it's clear what you're saying, that it makes sense to the person who's listening. Because if it's so inaccurate that the other person doesn't understand, then it can be as instinctive and natural as you want. And that conversation is still going to have some struggles because the other person doesn't have any idea what's going on. They're just going to be completely lost. And that's what I don't want in my conversations. I want to be able to share stories from the past and have people follow what I'm saying. So I did my review and I checked in with my husband. So you might check in with a teacher or you might check in with a friend or a loved one that can confirm, yes, this is the most natural way to say this, or that's how I would say it too. And what I found out was that these parts that after doing the review that I was nervous about, that I was like, ooh, this was really instinctive for me to say, but based on my review, I don't think it's the most accurate option. I was right. It wasn't the most accurate option. And my husband said, no, I actually would have said it with the other. past form. And I was like, and this is why. This is why I go back and review these things. Not why I stop using the form. No, 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 no. I continue to use it with people, as I've already mentioned, but why I go back and review it so that I can constantly be improving what I am communicating with people. Because at the end of the day, what I really truly want is just to have really smooth, natural conversations with people in Spanish. That's what I live for. I'm so excited for that in my life. And I um used some of my voice message speaking practice questions to give myself an opportunity to practice the different past forms. And I did it in a couple of ways because I have some questions that were actually asked in the past. So that was really easy. A question in the past, answer in the past. But I also had questions that weren't explicitly questions about the past. And I had to maneuver my answer to make it fit the question and still be able to use the past. And I think that that's one of the really cool things about the voice message speaking practice that I hope that people really take advantage of is that you get to use it for what you need and want to practice. And then I can give you feedback based on what comes out clearer, or if there's a little bit that's less clear, then I can give you feedback on that. And in this case, I had to ask my husband to give me a little feedback, and I was able to polish it up, and it's a work in progress. I'm still spending little bits of time here and there, never overwhelming myself, never getting stuck in grammar, I hope, so that I can continue progressing and be getting more confident with the use of these tenses. Because there's that ebb and flow, there's always that up and down. And what I just really noticed for myself is that the not knowing whether something is completely accurate or not removes confidence. So now that I have more knowing through the practice that I've done, I have more confidence with it, with both the idioms and the past forms. So I hope that that will be inspiration for you as well. And so the question I would just throw out at you is, what are you wanting to use in English that you aren't using right now? Can you stick it up on a door or review it or put it somewhere that you can use it more easily or be motivated to? And what is it? Let me know because I would love to cheer you on. And remember, keep it simple. Don't overwhelm yourself. And you can send me an email, as always, at hola@vickykelty.com. Happy learning, and I hope these tips have proved most helpful to you. Bye-bye for now.